Hello. Welcome to the Yoga for the Creative Soul book club. Today, as we're carrying forth through part 2 of the book, exploring our 5 paths to our expressive spirit. Chapter 7, playing with the path of Raja Yoga, the royal path of yoga, as expressed in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, many translations of the Yoga Sutras. I recommend the Satchidananda translation to start out with. It'll show you the Sanskrit lettering, how to pronounce the Sanskrit, which is like acupressure for your mouth that travels through your nadis, your energy channels, English translation, and anecdotes and teaching stories to support you as you are understanding and integrating the information in the sutras. Chapter 1 about how we maintain our state of mind, and chapter 2, your handbook to enlightenment, that outlines the steps, the practices to follow in order to connect with our true selves, that unifying consciousness. As we get started today, we're talking about the second limb of the 8 limbs of Raja Yoga, the observances of health. And today we're talking about that third observance, tapas, or more on tapas momentarily. But before we get into that, I wish to acknowledge my privilege as a settler to live, work, collaborate, create on these Indigenous lands adjacent to the Grand River, directly adjacent to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, and here right on the Haldimand Tract, promised to our original peoples, where I am living rent-free. I encourage you to educate yourself about the comprehensive history of Canada. You can check out University of Alberta's course, Native History of Canada, which they offer for free. It's a really excellent course. As we continue to move towards a more unified existence here and internationally, education is a really important piece. We start these gatherings every Wednesday at 12:30 Eastern, which you're more than welcome to attend, with a little off-camera sharing, just touching base. And someone's trying to get into the book club right now, so I just want to answer her. And we love to see you. So whether you can make it every week or just watch the video and post to the group in Facebook later, we want to know what you're up to, how you're interfacing with this content. How are you doing in your own creative and yoga and mental health journeys? Those are the things bringing us together here, yoga and expressive arts for mental health and trauma recovery. So off camera today, there was talk of, oh boy, I'm forgetting what it's officially called, but forest bathing, forest facilitator. I know. Oh man, forest, I'm going to say
Forest therapy.
Forest therapy, you'd think, but no, I couldn't come up with it. Forest therapy. Thank you, Florence. And there's a great richness to that, and great harmony with the traditions of this land's original peoples, where the world would be very different if we were following that culture and ethical code, which understands the interdependence of life. So the word interdependence really stuck with me today, given global events. And there is continually strife in the human world, in the material world, because there remains strife in our hearts and in our relationships with ourselves. The yoga is a tool of world peace. When, there's a Celtic philosopher who says, if there were world peace tomorrow, would you have peace in your heart? And it is the internal battles, it is the journey of our own recovery that supports us in living interdependently and living in peace. So for our yoga component today, for our centering, before we start talking about tapas, let's go through a visualization that we have done before. Was got a lot of feedback about people finding it useful. So if you haven't seen this yet, enjoy, watch repeatedly as this video is posted for your access. And settle in with eyes closed. And just notice your breath. Just start with, where am I? How am I? And let the breath find its own depth, its own rhythm, its own place. And allow the breath to intentionally carry upon it, within its energy, the quality of peace, whatever that might mean to you. Nature, love, connection, freedom, divinity, safety. Peace as you understand it, flowing on the breath. When the breath travels, is nourishment throughout the body. Peace now in every cell. And shining from the body, filling the space around you. So your personal space, like the halo around a candle, is that of peace. All that is not like peace flows away. And the divinity of peace itself shines more brightly into the room. Your building, your street, shining peace through your town, province or state, the light of peace filling the country and continent. Traveling deeply through the earth, conducted by the oceans. All around the globe in an atmosphere. Peace everywhere. Peace to all beings. Peace to the world of nature. Those of you who are hands-on healers might actually create a chi ball of peace and imagine Mother Earth herself held receiving this balancing energy. If you wish to intentionally send this peace to a specific part of the world, person or group of people who would most benefit, you can add direction, intentionality. knowing that you don't have to do the work. Peace as a virtue has its own intelligence. Trust and intend for that flow of peace to continue. Even as you draw your awareness back from the atmosphere, the ocean, the underground, continent, country, city, home, back to your body, acknowledging the boundaries of your personal space, all that is nourishing and supportive flows freely to you as nourishment on all levels. All that is not nourishing is simply filtered. And you're welcome as we move on through the teaching to do some form of expressive art on what you were just feeling, intending, perceiving through that visualization journey. You're welcome to express. And via that expression, the intentions of the visualization become more real here. In the current global situation, we are seeing more of a sense of peace and interdependence. We are understanding this more and more as a species, and that's beneficial for all of us. Some of this is a result of the effort, the discipline of generations of those who want to give voice to humanity and the importance of peace. Many have spoken very eloquently over decades about the impacts of the absence of peace and how that does not make sense in a society of beings with developed prefrontal cortices. We simply know better and are capable of better. And our efforts, our discipline, continue to support us as individuals and as a global population in moving in that direction. This concept of effort, and it has several other translations that we'll touch on today, is known in Sanskrit as tapas. And tapas literally translates as to generate light or heat. So how do we get from to generate light or heat to effort? Well, have you ever tried to start a campfire in the spring with just a stick of flint? And if you have, and you're new to flint, then you understand why they're calling it effort. But hey, once we get that spark on the tinder, we apply that effort, that patience, adding those little fibers, building something up. This brightens us. Our effort, our discipline brightens us. It it burns us sometimes. We'll talk about that in a minute. Like fire, it fuels us, and it's elemental, it's transformative. The idea of tapas, the idea of discipline, is that it is something that we do on a regular basis, whether we want to or not, because it's just the thing we do. I often liken it to toothbrushing, where I know a lot of people who don't love brushing their teeth. They're not like, oh, I get to brush my teeth now. And I do know also a lot of people are like, I hate brushing my teeth, but you have to do it. And that's the discipline part, right? That it's that thing that we do. There's a dedication to it. This comes into the brightening a little bit, where we feel like, yeah, I'm doing this because it's important. Maybe not every day does it feel important to us. Um, that's where the austerity comes in, and you can think of austerity like the sages that would hold their arm in the air for, I mean, how long did they do this? 20 years, 50 years, and it would just become this atrophied, almost disembodied part, and these gruesome fingernails that they're, just hanging out with the arm in the air as an austerity, as a dedication to the divine, as a transcendence of the physical form and acknowledgement of that transformative principle. But the austerity hurts. We're in Lent, for those who follow that tradition, where something is surrendered in the sake of faith. And then every time we remember, oh man, I don't have access to that thing right now. That burn is some of what is generated by tapas as well, right? It stings us, and that sting, the burn, is a beautiful thing because it reminds us that we are purifying the soul through this discipline, or depending on what that discipline is, purifying our minds, our psyches, our bodies, that there is in a moderate form that's appropriate for the modern householder. Austerity is really, really beneficial. Tapas to generate light and heat. We can think of this as that eternal flame principle as well. When I hear tapas, my brain automates to my morning practice, how for, I don't know, 2 decades now, more, I've been getting up every morning. Yes, I miss mornings, but let's say every morning, and doing some movement, reading a sutra or some other form of scripture. The Bhagavad Gita I've studied intensely over years, the Upanishads, as well as Rumi from 2019 to 2021. Rumi was the study. And so you can decide what that is for you. We'll talk more about study next week. But the tapas is the getting out of bed. That's the hard part, isn't it? Reading the scripture, doing the movement, and then meditating for as long a duration as possible, given life. And the eternal flame is that this is something that I started doing in my youth and young adulthood, and something that I will continue to do forever. And if we want to look back, if this fits your belief system, for how many lifetimes have I been doing this practice, and for how many lifetimes will I continue to do this practice? That eternal flame. And then the yogis might say there comes a point where we are absorbed by the eternal flame, that the soul reaches that nirvana point and becomes a part of unitive consciousness, doesn't have to deal with the body anymore. That gets into religious ideology, and yoga is not a religion. It's a grammar for religions. It's appropriate for people who practice any religion and for those who don't. So, the eternal flame of daily practice, as we just discussed. And if we're thinking of this in terms of our creative souls, then we're thinking of tapas as a daily practice in our creative expression, whatever form that may take. That that within tapas lies the opportunity to elaborate, develop, explore our natural gifts. And in the absence of tapas, like that arm in the air, there may be the atrophy, there may be the loss of connection to those creative opportunities, those gifts, skills, insights, inspirations, and enthusiasms that we have. So tapas, generating light and heat, is about, especially once we've gotten it lit, keeping that fire going, even though it burns us sometimes, having that discipline of being the fire keeper in our own lives, and letting that eternal flame of practice keep us warm, keep us nourished, and transforming all that does not serve us in our lives into something that becomes useful for ourselves and for others. So as we're thinking about this discipline, this practice of tapas, as it relates to our creative selves, I'd ask you to think back to a time in your life where you felt a little more free, a little more creative, a little more open to the sense of wonder and possibility that flows through daily life. And notice, even as you're cued to consider that time, and it could be a stretch of years, often we return to childhood, happy moments in childhood when we think of that freedom and openness, of that wonder. But maybe it was an hour of a vacation somewhere where something really touched you. Take it as a snapshot, but notice what starts to happen in the body as you consider that time when you were connected to something uplifting, something possible, something wondrous. Yes. And if you can allow your breath to elaborate that sense of wonder, that sense of creative possibility, that sense of engagement, you might feel a lightening, you might feel a grounding, you might feel a movement within. Take that to your expressive practice. So some of you were already doing some expressive work. You can set that aside for now if you wish to play along with this second activity. And using simple colors, simple lines, maybe some words. See if you can express that moment when you felt inspiration. This is one of those activities that goes quite well if you use the non-dominant hand. So if you want a little extra freedom or lack thereof, because that non-dominant hand doesn't cooperate the way we think it might, play with your non-dominant hand expressing that memory of inspiration. No one's really defining inspiration for you. This is yours to decide. What is that today? And as much as possible, keep the breath with you. Keep that felt sense, that somatic understanding, that embodied idea of inspiration as you play with depicting it. Expressing yourself, inspired, curious, wondering, playing, wanting to know more. Do more, share more. And anytime your breath lets go, bring yourself back to breathing that sense of inspiration, breathing that vitality, that light, that heat. Giving you time to express that while you are expressing that. In case I forget to mention it later, as we're recording this, the equinox is on its way. The full moon is on its way. Those things are related, if I understand correctly. And I this whole week have already been in ceremony for peace. But on Saturday, I'm gathering with some close associates and doing a ceremony for the new moon, for the equinox, the time when all things are in balance. It is a balancing time. So if you feel a little bit of turmoil heading into or out of an equinox, that's actually maybe a good thing, a balance reset, getting rid of what doesn't serve us anymore. If you wish to add your intentions to that ceremony on Saturday, know that something is happening that day. And through the evening, through the moonrise time. And it will be happening over several hours. You can hop in and hop out and add your intentions to it. Just knowing, even if you are alone in your space, you are not alone energetically. Someone you know is doing the same thing at the same time. And you're more than welcome to contribute the energies to that. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. This we know. Now, hopefully that was fun. I'm gonna come at you with the practical stuff now. Um, there, you can do this on a new page. If you're like my little person who's feeling open and joyful and creative is just having such a blast, I almost don't want to weigh them down with what I'm about to say next. So you might do this on a fresh page. But in what ways can you support this version of yourself in bringing more of this enthusiastic tapas, this inspiration, color, wonder, light, and heat into everyday life? So I'm just going to write down some pointers for myself. Maybe you have some affirmations. Maybe it's a sacred time of day or a peak energy time or a peak focus time, just acknowledging that. Maybe it's creative symbols or a modality that you want to get back into. Maybe it's a venting process that you know is actually required before you can get into the thing you want to do. I'm just remembering that I missed a line on that slide. I didn't show you the last line. The last line in all caps. I'm going to share the screen. It's worth, maybe, hopefully it's worth showing you. Okay, so what you are doing in your creative exercise right now is that you are jotting down, you're using language, or maybe you're using symbols to share with yourself, how can I support myself in maintaining this in everyday life? How can I light an eternal flame of inspiration? Part of tapas is finishing. So paging Dr. Freud, did you really forget to show the last line of your slide about finishing? Finishing is tough, especially in a creative endeavor, because isn't that the grind? Isn't that the edit and polish of a book or a screenplay? Isn't that the shading and accents in a painting? Isn't the last bit the grind? This is where we are more in the austerity and the burn of the light and heat for many of us. Not everybody. I think some people are finishers, but when I was hiring an executive assistant, that became my main interview question. Are you a starter or a finisher? Do you want to guess how many finishers I found? I found one. I found one finisher, and that person might not have been telling the truth. They weren't a good match. I'll never know. But there was also one person who was part starter and part finisher. But the more I listened, the more I heard starter. For most of us, it's the start that's the fun, because the possibilities are wide open. In the finishing, we're doing the nitty-gritty detail work, and the tapas is the thing that is carrying us through to completion, whether we like it or not. And while it's burning us, we get to say, I'm being purified. The sages told me so. So that's just a reminder came to me as we're jotting down these affirmations and inspirations for ourselves. So in our sharing today, we talked a little bit about all the things that we wanted to do, and whether it was time, energy, self-worth, what some of those obstacles were. Well, that transformative principle of tapas will burn those obstacles away. All we have to do is show up. So there's me, gleeful, open eyes, open mouth, open hands, just kind of playing with color. And I wrote, notice where the time is. When at Yoga Life, we teach you to start your daily yoga practice. That's how we ask you to start. Don't change anything. Just notice where the time is. Where could you fit this in? Would anybody else who's been playing along with us today like the chance to share? Saw your camera come on, Kate. Yeah, hi.
Hi. I'm running out of paper, so just I've squeezed everything in. So, well, this is my inspiration. I just have an I in the middle of this circle and just kind of expressing like endlessly. I feel like that's how I felt as a little girl. I could just do whatever, wherever I was, I could just express whatever was happening for me. And then over here, I'm just, for me, I mean, my yoga practice is, but meditation for me is a consistent meditation practice is really building my foundation to continue to be able to hold on to this person. Just my self-care. It helps me to center whenever I need it, right? So
Beautiful.
I have a lot of words. I have discipline. Where is it?
Discipline.
Discipline.
Words. Oh, fun.
These are all words around it.
Yeah.
Strength, discipline, dedication, daily, perseverance, self-care, foundation, and consistent. Practice.
It's useful words for us all to hear. Thank you, Kate.
Thank
you. Thank you. Yes, and oh, hi, Bonnie.
Hi there.
Oh.
The first one I was just drawing. I think that was the peace, kind of all over the place thought feeling. And then the time to be creative, before, younger, more open, wonder. So like Kate, like yours, like radiating outward and constant and exuberant and expressive. And it occurred to me to help with that. I had the words devotional, discipline, and to always just start again. So if I think that I've stopped or fallen off, or of the practices that I aim to do, such as, and also I set it up as just do it for 1 minute. If I just think it's 1 minute and then it goes longer, great, but minimum 1 minute. So the things I want to do, like 1 minute writing, reading, a daily colorful scribble, even a 1 minute walk outside. So not the pressure of having to be a big space of time, reducing it down to that minimum 1 minute. And if I don't, and I skip a day or whatever many, just start again. Just, it's okay.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. I read a book a long time ago. They called those micro actions, but they are the thing in us creating who we want to be in the world. 1 minute. Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie. Powerful. Well, we're at our time. So I thank everybody who was here live, and thanks to everybody who are watching the video. Like, share, subscribe. It does really help us out when you do that. Post to the group, and thanks to everybody who continues to support everybody else who is posting as well with your comments, with your hearts. And thanks to those of you who are sharing in the group as well, keeping us inspired, keeping us going with our expressive endeavors, no matter what medium we've chosen. We are back next week, Wednesday at 12:30 Eastern live. We'll be talking about svadhyaya, self-study, and how we might lean a little more into mental health next week with the self-study idea also. Hope to sense you out there in the ether on Saturday during the real juice of the peace ceremony, but I'm more or less keeping that going this whole week. So reach out to me if you have any questions. Just reach out to me on social. And thank you so much. Wishing you much warmth from the light and heat you're generating. Bye, everybody. Bye, everyone. Bye.